Okay, so first rule of bookworms is you never talk about bookworms. Second rule of bookworms is every so often you should do a book review. So here's mine. So this is Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. And anybody that knows anything about this knows that that was paraphrased from the Fight Club, where he says, one of the main characters, Tyler Durden, says, the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. So, this is a book I read ages ago. I read this a few years ago, and I read through it, and it took a long time reading it, and it was all right. And then just recently I felt compelled to read it again. And so that's what I did. I read it again, and this time it just blew me away, this book. So let me tell you a bit about the story of the book. Basically, there's a character who I didn't realize is actually nameless. I was trying to look for the name of the main protagonist, and I couldn't find it. And then I realized that was the whole point of it. He doesn't have a name. He's kind of nameless, but he's the narrator of the book. And this particular chap is working in a good job. You know, he makes a good living. He travels about the country. He's single. He lives in a nice flat on a big tower block, and it's populated with nice furniture, sort of mostly from IKEA and what have you. And but he's suffering with insomnia, and the insomnia gets to the point where he's just dazed out all the time. And he goes to see a doctor, and the doctor basically tells him, look, you don't really have any problems. I'm not going to treat you. If you want to see real problems, go and see these people who have cancer. And, you know, there's a support group on a Tuesday. Go and see them, and you'll see what real problems are like. So this guy goes along to this cancer support group, and he sees all these people. This particular cancer group is a testicular support cancer group, where men have literally, been given treatment where their testes have even been removed. And he finds himself, it's a kind of one of those groups where people are hugging and crying, and he starts finding himself crying. And then very soon his insomnia is cured. He goes home and starts sleeping like a baby. And then he realizes that there's some experience about going there and talking to people, and it's authentic. And so he starts going to all these different support groups. He doesn't have any of these afflictions or illnesses. So he starts going to all of these groups, and it's great. And then he sees a lady there called Marla, meets her, and then he realizes that she's going to all these groups as well. So he realizes that she doesn't have all these afflictions either. He realizes that she's a tourist as well, and she's going there. And now he can't sleep because he knows that she's a fake. So he can't be himself. And finally he confronts her and says, look, you're coming here. You can't come along to this group either. And so he decides that they make this agreement between themselves that, okay, she's going to go twice a week and to one group, and she's going to go twice a week to the other group, and they split this up between themselves. Anyway, this goes on for a little while, and then on one of his trips, this character meets a guy called Tyler Durden. Now, many of you probably will know that this was made into a very famous film. So a lot of you have probably seen the film already. It's a famous film starring Brad Pitt. And Brad Pitt and a guy called something Norton. He plays the main narrator of the book. Edward Norton, I think his name is. And Brad Pitt is this real genius, dark genius type character who works as a projectionist and a waiter, but he likes the idea of bringing chaos into things. So he does things like pee into people's food and contaminate it. And he gets a lot of pleasure out of seeing celebrities and big and famous people eating this food. And then he'll do things like in movies, he'll insert, you know, pornographic little clips in a little single frame into the projection so that people feel a bit uncomfortable, but they don't know why. And he does chaotic things like this. So he's a kind of, he comes across as a kind of anarchist. So he, the main narrator falls under the spell of this guy because he's quite philosophical and he talks about lots of ideas. And one day outside of a bar, the Tyler Durden character says to the main protagonist, "Hit me as hard as you can." And he does. He hits him as hard as he can and they start fighting. And at the end of it, they feel great. You know, the main character feels cathartic. He feels like he's had a release of tension and emotion. He feels great. And they start doing this on a regular basis and he feels better and better. So he realizes he's found something here. And then other people see this and say, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, I'm fighting." And basically what happens is these fight clubs begin to emerge. And it's at the bottom of a bar. All these guys come along and they have various rules. They have to fight with their shirts off. They have to take their shoes off. And they have to basically fight until somebody taps out or stops. And these fight clubs, which is what the name of the book is, become really, really popular. These men feel suddenly alive. They feel connected to something and they become really popular. Now, this Tyler Durden character says some really interesting things. You know, there's a great line from it where he says, "Advertisers has us chasing cars and clothes, doing jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need. We're the middle children of history. We have no purpose or place. We have no great war, no great depression. Our great war is a spiritual war. Our great depression is our lives." So these, you know, and he's, you know, he's like a real kind of dark genius. Eventually, it gets to the point where they need more and they decide to set up a sort of cult. At one point, the main protagonist's apartment explodes. And so he doesn't have a place to stay. So he moves in with this guy, Tyler Durden. They start living together and they literally start creating an army of guys who go around doing all sorts of things, creating mayhem and chaos. And what really is coming out of this is that Tyler Durden wants to bring down civilization and create a new sort of world order, or at least bring down civilization. So that's the kind of main sort of premise of the book. There is a sort of, well, you've probably all seen the film, so I bet you probably know how this ends. But what it turns out is that Tyler Durden doesn't actually exist. He's actually a figment of the main protagonist's imagination. And Tyler Durden is the kind of man's man. He's good looking. He's very, you know, he does whatever he wants. He fights. He's ready to fight. And he has, you know, he does things his own way. And the main protagonist really gets sucked in by this and really wants to be like that. So, so he literally creates this guy and in his mind, and it turns out that Tyler Durden is actually this guy. If any of you have seen the film is actually very close to the book. I think is, this is one of the few times where I think the film is almost as good as the book. And I think I probably found the two. I mean, I think they're up there. And I think as a movie, this is probably Brad Pitt's best movie, I think. And probably Edward Norton's. And I think when they're both gone, this will be the movie that they'll be remembered for. So what did I think of this book? Like I said, I think this kind of blew me away this time when I read it. It's not very long. And it's got some incredible themes in it. And I think it really does address a lot of questions about men in the world today. When I was reading this, it almost felt like I discovered like a gentleman's only club or a golf club just for men. And I have to admit, I kind of liked that. I liked the idea of that. And I liked the feeling of that. And I think this book, and I think for a lot of people, it's connected to a sense of a loss of male purpose and a sense of male bonding. And there's a lot of books that are there for women. Yeah, I think there's things like the Joy Luck Club and the Yaya Sisterhood and all this kind of stuff. But there are very few books for men that give that sense. And I think the idea of men actually fighting it out is very appealing to a lot of men. Because that sense that they are doing something dangerous and that they're pitting themselves against each other. I think there's a bit of the male psyche that this guy somehow connected to. And I think when books take off like this, it's because they've settled, they've hit on some nerve. And I think that's what this book did. It hit on a nerve that was very important to men. I mean, the book's become a phenomenon. The film, loads of other things. I heard about loads of fight clubs that have opened in different places. And I think it reflected something about the male psyche that a lot of women just don't get. And a lot of men maybe didn't realize was there. There's the other big thing about this book for me was the idea of connection. You know, the lack of connection in the modern world. The idea that this guy has to literally go to a support group to find a place where people genuinely, authentically connect. And that was, you know, I think probably that's the biggest theme of the whole book. It's that people have to go, like we are so disconnected from other people in the modern world that that's where we had to go. You know, and the pointlessness of the main character's life before that. You know, he's doing a job that he genuinely doesn't like. He's buying all this IKEA furniture, which is really the same as almost everybody else. And, you know, he's single. I mean, for example, he meets the main character, the other female character, Marla. He obviously is very attracted to her. And he realizes that he's in love with her, but can't, he has to become something that he's not in order to attract her. And he's very much, you know, the Tyler Durden character is everything he's not. And he literally creates that in this kind of schizoid way. So, yeah, Zaki, give me 2 seconds. Sorry, just interrupted there for people wondering what I'm doing. So yeah, he kind of creates that in this kind of schizoid way to fulfill on what he thinks Marla will want. But it goes way, way beyond that. So yeah, it's, I mean, this idea that, you know, men want to belong to something bigger. And then there's the whole idea of father figures, of not having father figures in our life. It's a big comment on that, on the fact that, you know, Tyler Durden will come out and say that, you know, men really are being brought up by there's a generation of men being brought up by women only, single parents, and that those fathers aren't there in their lives. So the Tyler Durden character becomes this kind of substitute father. He becomes the father to all these people. So yeah, it's like I said, I've probably kind of told you everything about the story, which is a shame. But this was written a while ago. The film was made in the 90s. Probably most people that are interested has probably already seen the film. And this, I mean, I found this quite moving. It really did make me think about the idea of masculinity and how, men do feel that they are being feminized in this world. And I think there are some serious issues to address there. What can I say? Yeah, I thought it was great. And the writing was even better the second time round. When I read it, I thought, whoa, this is great. And I've been